And welcome to Talking Smarks here on AIM Student Radio, the way radio should be. I'm Josh, and what I'm going to start this show off with here today is a shameless plug. Throughout my time here doing the show Talking Smarks and also doing the Dumpster Fire prior to this being a solo act for the time being, I had my Vega and I have been working on some music. We have a song out on Spotify now. It's called Ashes. It is awesome. My bit there, because if you'll find out, I can't sing, so I'm not even going to try to sing. But I did like a little some voiceover work. It's a very kind of apocalyptic track. Go check it out. It's awesome. Also, I released my own solo song yesterday, a little electronic instrumental piece. I call it A Night in Vegas. And this is going to be really the kickoff to kind of what I'm going to be doing musically for a little bit of time, because when I went to Vegas a couple of months ago, I talked about it incessantly on the Dumpster Fire. I'm pretty sure at this rate, my brothers and the rest of my family is probably annoyed that I keep talking about Vegas, but I loved it. But it really gave me like these ideas, because just seeing that city, the energy, the way that the people act, you know, just how a place like that even exists, you know, in the middle of the desert, gave me a lot of ideas. And I really am trying to like get those ideas down into a music form. So there's probably going to be more tracks centered around that theme of Vegas, and also just like the beauty, but also just like the isolation in Vegas. And that's my shameless plug for my music. A Night in Vegas, out on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Tidal. Anywhere you get your music, it's there. Go check it out. But this is a wrestling show, so let me go ahead and get started. SummerSlam weekend. I'm going to admit, it was one for the books. We had not just SummerSlam itself, which was actually a really bloody good show. I ended up watching it a little bit later in the evening. The main event was insane. Never did I think I'd see a tractor involved in a professional wrestling match, much less one where Brock Lesnar uses a tractor to pick up a wrestling ring with Roman Reigns still inside it in the middle of a show. And the show ended and the tractor still had the ring propped up. It was in an absolutely insane spot. Honestly, one of my favorite spots in a really long time. But other than that, the rest of the show was great. Bayley finally returned. It was overall just a really good show. Hope you get well soon. Becky Lynch did suffer a separated shoulder during her match with Bianca Belair at SummerSlam. Here's to hoping for a speedy recovery. But so far, the first big event of, you could say now, the Triple H era of WWE went off pretty well. According to sources within the wrestling industry, much of the creative planning was still Vince McMahon's idea, as most of the card and most of the show was planned out prior to his retirement from WWE, and reportedly, allegedly, to honor his wishes, they kept much of the show the same with some minor changes. With Raw, you can definitely tell more and more like the Triple H influence is starting to come through, which I can't wait. I talked about it at length on the previous episode. I'm hopeful. Hopefully, you know, this leads to some crazy good, just if not direct competition between WWE and AEW, but just like for us wrestling fans to give us those great matches. Also, to conclude SummerSlam weekend, we had the Ric Flair's last match pay-per-view, which was kind of a mix of everything. The rest of the undercard was very strong. It was very much a Jim Crockett Promotions event, top to bottom. I mean, they had the old logos. They had Tony Schiavone coming out and interviewing. They had David Crockett himself. They had like a reproduction of the old Jim Crockett Productions announce desk and their set. It was a really cool throwback type of show. Then the main event was, I'm not harping on it, but that was honestly one of the most genuinely frightening things I've ever seen in the wrestling business. And not necessarily in a good way, not in a good like, oh, that was an amazing match. Like, no, this was terrifying. It was alleged that Ric Flair had come into this match injured, and it was very noticeable throughout the match. I mean, he almost stumbled out of the curtain. Like, that was the first sign. It was like, oh dear, like this is frightening. During the match, he took kind of a wicked looking suplex from Jay Lethal. And after that, you can visibly tell, like, I'm not making this up. You can go and watch it. Like, you can tell that Rick's out of it. You can tell he's gassed out. Wasn't, I mean, he had been training really hard, and I commend him for it, but you can tell that after that suplex and with whatever injuries he had sustained prior to this match even starting, that it was hard to watch at times. He did get busted open, so he was a bloody mess. There were parts where Ric's face turned purple, especially at the end. Like when he locked in the figure four for the finish at the end, he was laying down on the mat. Like he was done. You could tell he was like, that's it. I'm done. It was pretty obvious, obviously, thankfully we had, pros in the ring. We had Jeff Jarrett, we had Jay Lethal, Karen Jarrett, Andrade. Thankfully, they were able to kind of work and still produce a really good match despite the circumstances and Ric, being so out of it. But it was a frightening sight to see. Obviously now, they say hindsight is 2020, and there were a lot of concerns about this match, as there very well should have been, and a lot of those fears were confirmed. It was reported that immediately the second Ric stepped back through that curtain, they had medics looking at him. Looks like he's all right. Looks like he's going to be okay, thankfully. Now, I'm all for, Ric getting this last hurrah. He's a legend in the business despite, some of the other things that you can say he's done throughout his career, good and bad. But he's a legend. I mean, he's the 16-time world heavyweight champion for a reason. There's a reason now that, artists of today, wrestlers of today are so influenced by him. I mean, he has a song with Offset, Ric Flair Drip. This man is the literal definition of styling and profiling. As much as I was, excited, I'm like, okay, Ric got this last hurrah. They literally brought back Jim Crockett Promotions for one night in Nashville to have this, very old school style event. They had the matches with obviously homages to the Four Horsemen, the Rock and Roll Express, the Von Erichs, very much that old school WCW, NWA, AWA feeling. As awesome as all of that was, and a lot of stars came out for the event. Ringside, you had DDP, you had Undertaker, you had Mick Foley, obviously Conrad Thompson, the promoter of the event, and his wife sitting ringside. Charlotte Flair was also confirmed to be there. However, you never saw her on camera, but it was confirmed she was there. A lot of other WWE talents were allegedly at the event as well, but because of obviously contractual reasons, they could not be shown on camera. As cool as this event was, seeing that match, honestly, I'd be okay if something like that never happened again. Not just because, and this is primarily not because I don't want to see it, but because this is the interest of wrestler safety. A couple of wrong moves here, and I would be eulogizing Ric Flair instead of talking about this match. Seeing him with that purple face and literally just passing out, essentially, that was frightening. Like I said, a couple of wrong moves, and it could have been very bad. So as much as I love to see, get that one last shot at that one last moment in the spotlight, I really hope, just in the interest of safety, that something like this never happens again. I mean, Ric skirted death at least. I can think of 3 big occurrences that we know of. The plane crash that broke his back early in his career, that he came back. A couple of years ago when he had that health crisis that nearly killed him. I'll be honest, there was a huge part of me that thought, no, this is it for the Nature Boy. He's done. No, he made it through somehow. The man has a pacemaker, which really, why was he even in the ring at that point? And then Sunday night, that was frightening to watch. There are hard to watch wrestling matches, if the storytelling's really good or if there was a shocking heel turn. But this was hard to watch in not a good way. There were quite a few times in this match that I thought, Ric's gonna die. This is gonna be hard to watch. Everyone in this crowd is gonna be traumatized by this. The wrestlers themselves, all the 9,000 people that they had in the Nashville Municipal Auditorium, everyone watching on Fight TV and on pay-per-view, because this was being broadcast around the world. It could have very easily gone the other way. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful that it didn't, but please, Conrad, any other promoters thinking of doing an event like this, don't. We got lucky on this one. Ric, despite how he looked, came out okay. there may not be someone as lucky the next time. So why even play that card? Just no. Undertaker's still nowhere near Ric's age, and he's already called it a day. You know, Mick Foley, same thing. He's called it a day. You know, a lot of these legends, you know, thankfully are saying like, hey, I had my time in the ring. I'm done. You know, they're not going to risk their life like that. So please, you know, if any other promoter is thinking of finding another, you know, legend around Ric Flair's age to do this with, like, no, done. No more. We got our one lucky shot. Like, that's it. You play the hand too much, sooner or later you're going to lose. That's just the way it works. And that is it for today's show. That was really what I wanted to do, you know, just mainly discuss and recap SummerSlam weekend, how it went off mostly without a hitch. And like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic to see what WWE plans on doing. Obviously, AEW, they got plans lined up for a long time. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait. And like I said, that's it for today's show. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Talking Smarks. You can follow me on Twitter at Wolfie Molina. Once again, I am shamelessly plugging in my own work here. A Night in Vegas out on Spotify, title wherever you get your music now. Ashes, the collaboration that Vega and myself did. Also everywhere you get your music. Listen, follow along. We got plenty more in the tank for all of you. This is Talking Smarks, and you all have a great rest of your day.